Our speaker today is Tim Shurr. He's presenting 3 ways to lower anxiety and boost productivity, how to gain momentum in uncertain times. Tim is an award-winning leadership and mindset speaker who specializes in upgrading unconscious beliefs, lowering anxiety, and optimizing productivity. Over the last 25 years, he has facilitated over 15,000 individual hypnosis coaching sessions and has authored numerous books, audio programs, and online training classes on leadership, communication, and personal development. We're really excited to have Tim here today, so take it away.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate everybody being here today. So we are going to lower anxiety and boost your productivity and momentum. So I thought I would start with a quick story to illustrate the power of language and the power of words. So there was a meeting professional and he was feeling a little stir crazy. And so he decided that he was going to go horseback riding just by himself. There's no one else around. So he was going to get some fresh air. So he drives out to this dude ranch and he talks to the rancher and he says, "Give me your best horse. I need to go for a ride and just let go and reduce some stress." So the rancher comes back with this beautiful horse and he has the meeting professional jump on that horse and he says, "Now I want you to know that this is a special horse. It's a very spiritual horse." And the guy says, "What do you mean by that?" And the rancher says, "Well, if you want this horse to go, you have to say, 'Praise the Lord.' And if you want the horse to stop, you've got to say, 'Hallelujah.'" And the meeting professional looked at the rancher like he was out of his mind. He says, "Are you kidding me?" He's like, "Yes, if you want this horse to go, you've got to say, 'Praise the Lord.' If you want the horse to stop, you've got to say, 'Hallelujah.'" So the guy says, "All right, fine." So the rancher steps back and the guy says, "Okay, let's go, horse. Come on, giddy up. Let's go, let's go." The horse isn't moving. "Come on, horse, let's go, let's go." The horse is not moving. "Oh, brother, all right, fine. Praise the Lord." And all of a sudden, the horse rears up and takes off and he's galloping and the guy's hanging on to the horse for his dear life. He's just hanging on, hanging on. The horse is going faster and faster. And all of a sudden, the meeting planner realizes that the horse is running right towards the edge of this cliff and they're going to fly right off. And he's like, "Stop, stop." The horse isn't stopping. "Stop, stop." The horse isn't stopping. Finally, he remembers, "Hallelujah, hallelujah." And the horse stops right at the edge of the cliff. And the guy says, "Oh, praise the Lord." So my story today illustrates the power of language and the power of communication. Today, we're going to accomplish 3 main objectives. We're going to learn how to avoid freaking out in these uncertain times and lower anxiety so that you can feel more secure, safe, and confident about the future. The second thing that we're going to do is I'm going to teach you some really powerful psychological strategies for following through on the goals that you have instead of sleeping in or getting distracted. We want to boost our productivity and seize opportunities. There's an opportunity in every situation. And even though we're going through COVID-19 and the coronavirus, when life throws you corona, you grab limes and you look for the opportunities. And then the third objective is we're going to switch from surviving to thriving, even during a pandemic. So let's start with lowering anxiety. Let's talk about anxiety. So 500,000 years ago, when we were cave people roaming around, our brain's main primal focus was survival. How do we remain safe? How do we make sure that we don't get eaten by a dinosaur or attacked from somebody else? Or if we go in the bushes, all of a sudden we hear a rustling sound. And our brain needed some kind of system to warn us of danger, and it developed what's called the fight or flight response. And so if we were to all of a sudden feel the back of our hair stand up on our neck, or the hair on the back of our neck stand up, or all of a sudden we would feel tightness in our chest or a pit in our stomach, that was our body's way of trying to say, "Hey, there's something going on. We need to be prepared. We need to be prepared." See, your mind's job was to prepare you, not scare you. But of course, over time, we had less and less danger. We're no longer in danger of being eaten by a dinosaur. However, we have this fight or flight response that is being triggered whenever we think there's a perceived threat, whether physical or emotional. So our brain had to develop another system to calm back down, to feel safe, to feel secure, because it's hard to think constructively or be proactive or to be resourceful or be innovative or creative when you're under tremendous stress. when your brain is squeezed, it's hard to come up with really good ways of acting. Your brain just wants to run away from the situation or fight. And that's like hiding or arguing in today's terminology. And we don't want to do either. We want to remain resourceful and creative and solution oriented, or we want to solve problems. And so your brain developed what's called the relaxation response. And the relaxation response is your body's natural way of feeling calm, peaceful, and at ease. It releases dopamine into your brain, calms your system. It's better than Prozac, and it allows you to feel safe and secure no matter where you're at, no matter who you're with, and no matter what's going on. So anxiety occurs when you have this inner fire alarm inside of you and it gets activated. So when your brain senses danger, it activates this fire alarm and lets you know, hey, we need to take charge in this situation. Well, chronic anxiety occurs when your inner fire alarm keeps getting activated and there's no fire. Now, anxiety and stress were on the rise before we experienced this pandemic, something that's happened in our lifetime that hasn't happened since, I guess, 1920, right? We've been through 9/11, we've been through the financial crisis of 2008, but this is something very different. And our immune system is going, what's happening here? And there's so much uncertainty in the world that our fire alarm is getting activated all the time. People are having a hard time quieting their mind and getting restful sleep to begin with. A lot of meeting professionals pride themselves on burning the candle at both ends and how many things can I accomplish at the same time. And that was having a toll on us because we were getting wore out, or we were feeling like we had to drive ourselves into the ground so that we could accomplish our goals. And what it was doing was wearing us out. So we actually have an opportunity, in spite of the uncertainty of what's going on, to be able to develop ourselves, to take a pause. We were laughing, Rokina and Julia and I were laughing about how many people are gardening now, right? How many lawns should look really beautiful over the next couple of months because people are stir crazy and they're wanting to get outside and they're wanting to just do something. And so we're taking care of the yard, but in doing that, we're also taking care of ourselves. And that's what this is really about. It's about taking care of ourselves. So I facilitated over 15,000 individual coaching sessions to help people with a variety of personal and professional goals. And my specialty is anxiety and helping people with post-traumatic stress, overcoming trauma from the past. And from doing all these sessions over the last 30 years, I realized that we have what I call emotional recipes. We have things that we do subconsciously that cause us to feel the way that we feel. We often think that it's our environment or the situation or our spouse or our kids or our clients that are causing this stress inside of us, but it's not. Actually, you're not usually even responding to the situation that's happening in the present. You're responding based on how your brain learned to respond to stress when you were a kid. And so based on the beliefs that we have about ourselves, others, and the world around us, we have developed these survival strategies. And as adults, what we want to do is go back, review these survival strategies and see if we need to upgrade them. Like maybe a survival strategy was to run and hide. Well, that's not going to be very effective if you need to show up and be resourceful and lead people or achieve goals. Or maybe the survival strategy was to fight and argue, right? Or get really pressured and stressed. Well, that's not helpful either. That ends up running us down. So we're going to take a look at the emotional recipes that create and trigger the relaxation response and also the fight or flight response so that you can go from surviving to thriving, so that you can lower anxiety while at the same time increasing confidence. So when you are looking at emotional recipes, there are 3 things to pay attention to. The first one is how you're holding your body, because how you hold your body and how you physically feel influences your mental and emotional well-being. It influences you heavily. So in fact, the first thing you want to change if you're trying to be more proactive or productive isn't what you're thinking about. It isn't what you're saying to yourself. It's actually how you're holding your body. So we'll go into detail in a second. The second part of it is what you're focusing on. As they say, what you think about comes about. What you focus on, you move towards. Whatever you think about most of the time, your life becomes. So your focus moves you in a certain direction. So if you're focusing on what you want, that's a good thing. But unfortunately, too many of us are focused on what we don't want, what we don't like, what we don't have, and what we're unhappy about. And if that's what you're focused on, you end up having more of that. And then the third one to focus on is your language, and that's your self-talk. What are you actually saying to yourself secretly in that mind of yours? What are those conversations based on that you're having with yourself all day long, every single day? It's like there's a powerful genie that lives inside of your mind, in the back of your head, and it's listening to what you're saying to yourself. It's watching what you're focusing on in the movies that you're playing in your imagination, and then it says, that's what you want? As you wish. Right? Now, if we knew that was happening, we'd be like, wait a second, is this what I want? Am I really focusing on what I want, or am I focusing on what I'm afraid of? So let's talk about how to activate the fight or flight response. Let's pretend we're at a seminar on how to increase anxiety. Let's imagine that you want to really freak yourself out, or you want to really freak everybody else out. Well, here's how you do it, okay? So first, we start with your physiology. We're going to start with your body. So if you want to feel stressed and uptight, breathe through your mouth. Breathe short and shallow, and breathe upper chest. And if you really want to crank it up, hold your breath, okay? Because that's the best way to start to increase cortisol and adrenaline in your body, your stress hormones, is to breathe through your mouth, very short, very shallow, very upper chest. When someone's having a panic attack, that's exactly how they breathe. I can't breathe, right? Because they're trying to slow down through their mouth, which doesn't work, right? And the other thing you do is you try to speed up, right? So you move faster, you get your body tight, you try to hold that tension in, right? So people start talking faster, they'll start cussing, they'll start getting louder, right? Because that amps up the fight or flight response. The second thing you do is you focus your mind on all the things that you don't want to have happen. You want to play worst case scenarios in your mind all day long. And you want to make these scary future events or these hurtful memories from the past as clear as you can, and put them on repeat, and try to zoom in on them and really focus on the stuff that scares you or hurts your feelings or worries you the most. And then just put them on replay and play it all day long. That'll really have you losing sleep and not eating and freaking out, or stress eating and putting on the COVID-19, right? People are gaining weight because they're so afraid. They're going to the smoking, the eating, the drinking, right? Instead of to the other things that would make them feel more at ease. We'll talk about those things in just a few minutes. So we're going to hold our body tight. We're going to breathe through our mouth. We're going to speed up. We're going to focus on what we don't want. And then the last part of it is your language, your self-talk. For that, you're going to tell yourself that things are not going to work out. You want to be discouraging, non-supportive, and really you don't want to be helpful or encouraging to yourself or to others, right? You want to be more critical. If you're really going to fire off that anxiety, you want to be critical. You want to talk as though we're never going to recover. We don't have the tools for this. We're never going to get out of this. It's going to ruin us forever, because that's an awesome way to scare yourself rather than prepare yourself. Now, I know that everybody that showed up for this is ready to do something completely different. The people who show up for a webinar like this are achievers. They are people who have wisdom, who are out there ready to make things happen, who are looking for resources and tools because you know that you're going to thrive from this. You're going to get through this one way or another, and you're going to come back stronger than ever. That's why you showed up for this. There's a lot of people that are hiding under their bed right now, doing these exact things and making themselves feel paralyzed because of what they're doing in their mind. It's not the situation, it's what we're doing in our mind. It's not what shows up, it's how you show up that matters more than anything else. So let's pivot, shall we? So let's talk then about how to activate the relaxation response. That's better, where we're going to develop calm and confidence. So how do you do that? Basically, do it by doing the opposite of the anxiety response. So the first thing you do with your physiology is you breathe through your nose. I want you to take a breath through your mouth. Okay, notice how that feels. Now I want you to take a breath through your nose. Breathe in through your nose, down to your belly. In fact, take your hand, put it over your belly button. Breathe in through your nose, breathe down to your belly, and then slowly exhale and do that a couple of times while I'm talking. If you want to make it even more effective, look up. Look up towards the ceiling while you're breathing in through your nose. And then slowly exhaling. When you do that 5 times in a row, it activates your relaxation response. It's that simple. It's that easy. You look up, you breathe in through your nose, down to your belly, you slowly exhale. You do it 5 times in a row. It takes about a minute. When you do that, it activates your relaxation response, and it also slows you down. It allows you to feel more calm. It allows you to feel more aware, and you become more confident because now you're activating these natural resources inside of you that allow you to take control and take charge. Then, I bet you feel better already, right? Then the second thing you do is you focus on what you want to have happen. You played the desired outcomes in your mind. Ask yourself, what do I want to have happen? How do I want things to turn out? How do I want to feel right now? What are a couple of things that I can do to feel that way? I can jump on the MPI website and check out the resources. I can do some power breathing. I can watch some inspirational or funny videos on YouTube. I can take some melatonin to go to sleep tonight. I can listen to a guided imagery program that helps me relax. I can play some music that I used to listen to in high school and dance around the living room. Right? I can drink some water and do a little exercise or do some gardening, call a friend, write a letter to someone that I really admire and send it off to them. There's lots of things that you can do that'll put you in a more peaceful state of mind. So you want to transform your worrisome thoughts by asking yourself, what do I want to have happen? And then imagine shrinking those fears down and put more energy into being present and resourceful in the moment. What can I do now? Because now is what you can control. We can't do anything about the past but learn from it, and the future hasn't happened yet. Now, Abraham Lincoln once said the best way to predict the future is to create it, and you create the future by what you do in the present. The third thing that you do is you focus on your language, your self-talk. What are you saying to yourself in that head of yours? What you start telling yourself is that things are going to work out. You be encouraging, supportive, and kind to yourself and to others. I call it asking best friend questions. What would you say to a best friend? What kind of questions would you ask your best friend to help him or her feel better, right? So you've accomplished things in the past, right? Well, then you'll do it again in the future. You've been through tough situations, right? You've been through things where you had no idea how it was going to work out, and somehow you found a way, right? Yeah. Well, we're going to find a way again, aren't we? Yeah. Right. And all of a sudden you start being more encouraging and more supportive. Sometimes it's hard to think about what to say to support ourselves when we're feeling scared. So what you do is you think about, how would I help someone else? A friend, a child, right? If you have a kid, or you have someone, your sibling's kid, if you're an aunt or an uncle, you might say, what would I say to them? Would I scare them, or would I help them feel encouraged and loved and safe? And of course, that's what you would do. So then you just come up with what would you say to them, and then direct it towards yourself. Okay, so this is how you activate the relaxation response. Breathe in through your nose. While you're looking up, imagine what you want to have happen. Imagine that everything's going to be okay, and then start thinking about what you want to have happen now, and then imagine taking action to move towards it. Now, what would get in the way of that? Well, there are ways that we subconsciously communicate with ourselves. And Virginia Satir came up with 5 ways that human beings communicate with themselves. And she said 4 of them are dysfunctional. And I think of them as survival strategies. But there's one of them in there that's a thriving strategy. So let's go through them. So Virginia, she is amazing. They call her the mother of family therapy, and she could sit down with you and start chatting with you about your problems, and all of a sudden they would seem to melt away and you'd start finding solutions. And she talked about these 5 levels. So let's go ahead and go through them. Now, if you want to have some real fun, let's act them out together. Okay? I know I can't see you, but let's pretend that I can. In my mind, I'm imagining you right now, and I want you to act these out with me, okay? So the first one's a placator. So hold your hands up like this, and imagine you're down on one knee. And then I want you to just repeat after me. Everything is for you. I don't matter. As long as you're okay, that's all that matters. The placator wants to make sure that everybody else is okay because they hate conflict. I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want anybody to get mad at me. They're always appeasing everybody else. Are you okay as long as you're okay? They're very indirect, kind of a nice guy or nice gal, you know, and I used to be that way because I didn't want anybody to be mad at me. I wanted everybody to like me. I wanted to chase approval. And it came from me having insecurity and low self-esteem, right? So I had to chase everybody else's approval. I don't want to tell anybody no, even if it's, you know, making me lose sleep and I'm stressed out and I have a hard time hitting all these deadlines, but I keep saying, okay, as long as you're okay, you know, because I don't want to say no, because I don't want you to get mad at me. And that's what placators do. We're very indirect. Even with the text, they'll go all the way around what they really want to say, and then they'll put LOL, right? Or a little smiley face emoji on there, because they're trying to make sure that everybody else is okay at their own expense. Right? So what happens is placators become passive aggressive. So in my mind, I'm thinking, sure, I'm going to help you out. I'm going to slash your tires afterwards, right? Because I'm like so frustrated, but I don't want to express that frustration. So I hold it in and it comes out in other ways. So the placator is the first dysfunctional form or the first survival strategy that we want to recognize and avoid. We all go through all of these. We just want to recognize them and then upgrade. The second one is the blamer. So I want you to imagine pointing and then repeat after me. It's all your fault. If you wanted to have done this, I wouldn't have done that. Okay? The blamer is always pointing the finger at someone else. We got a good example, politics aside. If you check out our president, I haven't heard him take responsibility for anything except the wins, right? I haven't heard him one time say, yeah, I goofed up. Not ever, not even once. So a good example of leadership that I've seen is Cuomo, Governor Cuomo in New York. He's saying, I take responsibility. If this doesn't work, it's on me. And he's giving credit to everybody else, but he's taking responsibility and he's owning it. He's being accountable. That causes people to trust you, right? But blamers don't do that. Blamers are always saying it's someone else's fault. And it too comes from not wanting to look weak, not wanting to look like you're not in control, and not looking like somehow you're less than, right? So it comes from insecurity as well. It just manifests in a different way. So people that are blamers are always losing their temper. They're always yelling. They're always blowing up. And so we want to be aware of that if you slip into that. The third one, survival strategy, what Virginia called the distractor. So the distractor is like going in 20 different directions all in the same time. Try that. Try that while you're sitting there in your chair going, ah, right? Or if you're sitting there doing the dishes while you have this webinar on, imagine going, ah, right? Now, us educated folk, we call ourselves multitaskers, but your brain doesn't multitask. It shifts. It stops one thing and shifts to another thing, and then it has to stop that thing and shift to another thing, which can be very mentally draining if you do that all day long. So distractors are basically sweeping things under the carpet. They hope that if I ignore the threat, it'll just go away on its own. So we've got to get distracted in everything else except the main issue. So we're going to get caught up in gossip and what other people are going through, and we're going to find some drama to be a part of. Anything that'll keep us from having to take a look at really what's going on. And I've worked with a lot of companies. I build a lot of powerful teams through upgrading self-limiting beliefs and unconscious biases. And there's a lot of distraction that happens in corporate America, especially with teams, because people, that's what creates silos. That's what creates dysfunctional communication, negativity in the workplace. It lowers productivity, all kinds of things that happen as a result of distraction. Then we have the fourth survival strategy, what we call the computer. So I want you to imagine going like this, because you're blocking your field of awareness. You're only tunnel vision. You're only seeing what you want to see, right? You're only looking for the proof that supports what you already believe. So the computer says, just the facts, just the facts. None of that touchy-feely crap. Okay? Are you saying it? Just the facts. None of that touchy-feely crap. Good, good. Now, the computer doesn't want to feel things because it makes you feel icky. It makes you feel uncomfortable, right? And so the computer becomes very aloof, very withdrawn, right? They emotionally detach. They become very analytical, and they come across arrogant or shut off, right? They'll say things like, that's your problem, not mine, right? Or you know, you're a big kid now, you're a grown up, I don't need to be, you know, chasing after you or things like that, right? They're just shut down and removed. And it's hard to connect with someone like that. It's hard to trust someone when they're like that. I've done that too. When I felt scared or threatened, you know, I grew up very blue collar, you know, middle class, lower middle class. And although I don't like those terms, but when I started coaching millionaires, I felt very small. I felt like I was unworthy until I actually got to know people and realized that the amount of money you have means nothing, and, you know, in correlation with your emotional intelligence and maturity. And so I started realizing that I was just as valuable as anybody else that I was hanging out with, and so are you. So Virginia said that there is one sort of strategy that's more about thriving than surviving. And this is the mature communication approach we want to use. And this is called the leveler. And the leveler is all about transparency. The leveler is all about being honest and direct and compassionate. Usually people are direct, but not compassionate, or very compassionate, but not direct, right? So you got the placater or you got the blamer. The leveler is someone who is both direct and compassionate. And they're accountable. You know, I'm good, you're good. We're going to get through this. We all make mistakes. It's okay. We need to forgive ourselves and figure out what can we do to make things better. Let's learn from the situation and move forward, and let's clarify the outcome that we want, get on the same page, and start supporting each other. So instead of competing or getting frustrated, we're going to collaborate and cause these things to happen. And that way we're becoming compassionate to ourselves and to others. And we've got to make sure that we do both, because a lot of times people are good at being kind to themselves and not to others, or kind to others and not to themselves. We want to make sure that we're doing both. Okay? So this is what happens when you don't have effective communication. Oh, that is not right. I wanted here. Let's go back. All right. See if I can get this to play. And building trust between one another. So Harrison, you don't mind going first. Step up here on this chair and close your eyes. All right, and then everybody fill in. And we're going to ask you to fall, and then they will catch you. So you have to trust us. I'm going to count to 3. Just relax and fall. Okay? 1, 2, 3. All right. So I like that video because who knew he was going to fall forward, right? Everybody assumes you fall backwards. And the problem is assuming. The problem is assumptions, right? We have these ideas that the way that we think is how everybody should think. And that is not accurate, and it's not what happens. And so we've got to make sure that when we are looking at how we can feel, how we can lower anxiety and how we can boost productivity, we want to be focusing on, all right, I got to get myself resourceful. Start with our power breathing, slow down, focus on what we want, reach out to people who can help us and support us during these challenging times, and be compassionate and encouraging of ourselves and to each other. We want to be the leveler. We want to be honest. I don't know what's going to happen with the meeting profession. I'm not sure. We don't know what it's going to look like. We're going to have, half the crowd capacity. We're going to have people sitting, 3 people to a table and the tables are all far apart. Are we going to do virtual reality sessions? Are we going to, everybody wear masks? How are we going to do that? As a, professional keynote speaker, I'm thinking, how am I going to, usually there's a line of people to come say hi after one of my talks. Am I going to have a piece of glass between us? Am I going to do a lot of virtual high fives? Because I can't imagine shaking hands with 100 people, right? Not right now, unless I got a giant canister of Perel and I'm like, how you doing? How you doing? Right? So we don't know what's going to happen, but I do know that people want a light at the end of the tunnel. We want to know that it's going to be okay no matter what. And the blessing behind this pandemic is that the whole world is experiencing it. So we have to work together. We have to come together as one. And that's what we're doing. So now that we've got ourselves in a more resourceful state, how do we boost our productivity? How do we get started and follow through? Some people have a hard time getting started. Other people have a hard time staying motivated and getting through. And so I'm going to share some really powerful things that I've picked up over the years from helping people with this. So the first thing that we do is we I take people through what I call my clarity experience. Now, the clarity experience is made up of a couple of steps, right? It's really helping you to get clear on what you actually want. The number one reason why a lot of people don't get what they want is because they don't know what they want. They haven't really clarified what they want. They only know what they don't want. If I say, if I gave you $1 million, what would you do with it? And people say, oh, I would pay off my bills. I'd pay off my house. I would travel, right? I would go celebrate, right? I'd buy a car. I'd buy this. And I'd be like, then what? And then, I don't know, right? Because, and if I said, well, if you were broke, what would happen? And then they would tell me for a half hour all the bad things that would occur. It's like our mind is so focused on surviving that it doesn't spend as much time on thriving. If your mind is spending 90% of the time trying to figure out how not to lose, then you're going to keep losing. Even it'll feel that way even if you're winning, right? Like it's never enough. And so we want to make sure that we're spending 90% of our time focused on the outcome that we want. I had a client come in one time and she said, I want to stop procrastinating. I said, great, but what do you want? She said, well, I want to stop putting things off. I said, awesome. What do you want? She says, I want to stop being so unorganized, right? And so what she was doing is saying, all her brain was hearing is procrastination, putting things off, unorganized. And that's what the genie in her brain acted on, those words. You know, if you tell your kid, don't throw that toy, what do? They throw the toy because you're telling them what not to do. And if your brain hears what not to do, that's what it does. It's like it ignores the word don't. All it hears is throw the toy. If you tell yourself, I'm not going to eat those cookies. I'm not going to eat those cookies. You know what? Your brain, all it hears is eat the cookies, all right? And then we do. And then you eat all the cookies and you're like, what happened? I had all these great intentions and it went out the window. I must be stressed. No, it's not that. It's we're not aware of how we're communicating with ourselves, how we're programming our inner genie. And so if you wanted to grant the right wishes, then what you've got to do is get more clarity on what you do want. So you ask yourself, all right, what is it that I actually do want? And why do I want that? What feelings is that going to produce inside of me? Because human beings are emotion junkies. Everything we do is because we're trying to feel a certain feeling, a certain emotion inside of us. And so we want to make sure that we are recognizing that, oh, well, I want to feel safe, or I want to have a sense of freedom, or I want to have a feeling of variety, or I want some adventure, or I want to feel like I'm making a difference, that I'm making a contribution. Right? Or I want to feel like I'm a part of something special. I want that love. I want that connection, you know, or I want to feel powerful. I want to feel like I have, you know, rags to riches. I'm self-made. I've worked really hard and look what I've accomplished. And it makes me feel really good about myself inside. So we start thinking about what do we want and why do we want it? We don't want just more work, right? We want the rewards that come from that. Then the second part of it is, how do you know when you've arrived, right? Like, how would you know that you've arrived? So if there were no signs on the road and you were in Chicago and you were going to drive to Florida, how would you know that you arrived in Florida if there were no signs? I don't know. Maybe you'd have to see some palm trees. Maybe you'd feel the warmer weather, right? Maybe you would all of a sudden hear the radio station and it's broadcasting from a Florida station, right? What would you see? What would you hear? What would you feel to let you know that you've arrived? Now apply that to your goals, right? If there's a goal or a dream that you want to accomplish, then how will you know that you've accomplished it? What will it look like? How will it sound? How will it feel? And what you do is you start imagining that. Now, some people are visual, so you can picture it in your mind. Other people are auditory, so you just talk yourself through it. Some people are kinesthetic, so you just kind of get feelings about things. And you can also use feelization instead of visualization. Feelization is when you are creating images in your mind that cause you to feel the way you want to feel right now. You don't have to wait until you achieve the goal to feel that way. One of the big secrets of motivation is to feel those feelings now. Most people do it opposite. They say, I'll feel good when I drop that 50 pounds. I'll feel good when I made that extra 10 grand. I'll feel good when this bill gets paid off. I'll feel good when my spouse stops doing that, whatever that is, right? Well, you are delaying from getting that feeling. And with that strategy, you probably never will get it, right? So we've got to create the feelings that we want to have now. And you do it by using feelization, by imagining, what if you already had your goal? What if you're already there? What if it's already here? It's now here. What's it look like? How's it sound? What are you saying to yourself? What are you imagining in your mind? How are you holding your body? How are you spending your time? Get into that feeling, associate into that feeling, and all of a sudden you start to feel excited, confident, motivated. And when you make decisions from that resourceful state, your decisions and the outcomes that you produce are 1,000 times more effective than what you would have done coming from stress. Now, I know I'm giving you a lot of really cool information. Hopefully you're taking notes. If you're not, this will be replayed on and it'll be live tomorrow on our YouTube channel. So we'll make sure that you'll have access to this if you want to go through it again. So let me tell you about Kathleen. Kathleen came into my office and she said, Tim, can you just make me a happy fat person? She said, I've tried every diet out there and nothing works for me. I've been doing this my whole life since I was a young girl, and I'm sick of being miserable and depressed. Can you just make me a happy fat person? And then she started to cry. So I knew that that's not what she wanted. She was settling. What she wanted was to be thinner and to feel good about herself. What she wanted was to feel self-love and to feel deserving. See, I've helped thousands of people to lose weight and keep it off and without dieting, because it really isn't about fruits and veggies and exercise. What I've learned is it's about self-love and worthiness. And it's our beliefs and the trauma from our past that influence the decisions that we're making, which cause us to turn to food under pressure, or to not take care of ourselves because we don't feel like we're worthy or deserving of it, which is totally false. That's total BS, belief systems, and we can upgrade that as adults. So I realized that that's not what she wanted. So I took Kathleen through this process and through the feelization process and upgrade her self-limiting beliefs. And 10 months later, this is Kathleen, right? Now, can you make me a happy person? Because that's what she wanted. Right? She wanted to be a happy person. We focused on her being happy and self-love and self-worth and feeling good about herself. And all of a sudden, this natural motivation came on. She lost the emotional weight, which is the hardest weight to lose. She lost the emotional weight first, and the rest followed. So this is very powerful stuff. When you start focusing on what you really want and why you want it, then we start to figure out, all right, what are the excuses, fears, and beliefs that are getting in your way? And when you upgrade that, boom, you have massive productivity and you start producing exciting results. Now, here's 3 more things that you can do to ignite your productivity, right? And produce better outcomes. So the first one is we're going to use pain and pleasure. All right. Pain and pleasure are the driving forces of human behavior. So we want to use them to your advantage. So for Kathleen, since we talked about her, we'll use that as an example. And when I first met her, she associated pleasure to eating all the comfort foods and pain to not having those foods and to exercise, right? I want to lose weight, but I also want to eat everything in sight, right? Well, good luck. That's not going to happen. So when people procrastinate, what they do is they associate pain to the goal or pain to the action steps that will get them to their goal. So if you look at the bottom, we associate pain to our goal or the action steps that would cause you to follow through. Our brain says, because it doesn't like pain, it says, I'm not doing that, right? I'm not doing that. I need to do my taxes. I haven't got them done yet because we have like till July now. And in my brain's like, okay, and I need to shift that, right? I need to get it done. So I've got to associate pleasure to getting my taxes done. How do I do that, right? Well, what I do is I jump to the end. I think about when the taxes are done and everything's cleaned up and my desk is organized, how will that feel? Oh, that'll be amazing. That feels really good. Instantly, I flood my body with the feeling of peace, a feeling of ease. Now my brain is associating that feeling to getting the taxes done. And now all of a sudden I'm motivated. Right? I want that feeling. So what you do is you don't start with the beginning step, you jump to the end, right? If this was already done, how would I feel? And so that's how you start to associate pleasure to what you want. The other thing you do is you put pain behind you, right? So pleasure's in front of you. So you imagine that you're moving in this direction, pleasure's in front of you, this is where you're headed, and pain is behind you. I don't want to go back to that. No way. I don't want that again. So I have to keep moving forward. There's no way I'm going back to that. That's what's going to keep me moving forward. And that's how you prevent relapse down the road. So you use pleasure and pain to your advantage. The second step is to use association and dissociation. So here's what I mean by that. When you associate, it means that you're stepping into something. You're in it, right? You are feeling the pleasure of achievement. You imagine yourself already successful. See, what most people do is they imagine I'll feel good when I achieve that goal. What they're doing is dissociating from it. It feels like it's something out there, out of reach, away from them, and they're not accessing the good feelings. They're accessing the frustration of not having what they want. You can't get motivated just from being frustrated. I suppose you can. You can really frustrate yourself enough to take action, but it's a horrible motivational strategy because it means you have to feel terrible every time you want to get motivated. Instead, we use pleasure and we move towards the thrill and the excitement and the pleasure of going after our goals, right? So we associate into the pleasure and we dissociate from the pain of it. Let me give you an example of this. So back when we had sports, I'm not a big sports guy, but I was watching an interview of Michael Jordan because I study top performers to figure out how they think. And they were interviewing Michael Jordan and they said, Michael, what's it like to hit those game-winning shots all the time? And he says, oh, I love it. I know that when I get the ball, it's going in the hoop. I just know it. It's a done deal. And they said, well, Michael, you've also, missed a lot of game-winning shots. What's that like? And he says, well, even Michael Jordan misses sometimes. And I went, whoa. He went third person when he talked about missing. When he talked about failure, it was over here. Even Michael Jordan does that once in a while. When he talked about success, he was right in it. So then they had another interview, and it was with Charles Barkley. And Charles Barkley down here in the corner, they were asking him, they said, oh, you're well known for being a great player and for trash talking and all that stuff. And he says, yeah, I love the game. I love the guys. I love hanging out and the competition of it all. And they said, well, you're also known for getting in a lot of trouble. And he said, well, even Charles Barkley gets in trouble once in a while. And I went, oh my gosh, he did it again. Now, I don't know if they were doing this on purpose, but every time they talked about success, they associated into it. And every time they talked about anything they didn't want, it was third person. It was over there, right? So I know that things are going to work out for us. But every once in a while, things aren't going to go the way that we want. And you know what? That happens to everybody. That happens to everybody, okay? But I know for us, for you, and for me, the things are going to work out just fine. The third thing is we want to use what's called submodalities, how you imagine things in your mind, not just what you imagine, but how you imagine it. So if you want to intensify any feeling, you make it big and close, as clear as possible, loud. That's how you make things big and close, right? My giant forehead coming in and it, right? You make things big and close, and that intensifies a feeling. If you want to lower the feeling or detensify it, then you make things smaller and farther back. So imagine that we were watching the movie Jaws on an IMAX screen, and you hear that 3D sound, dun, 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 this big shark coming at you. That gets your heart racing, right? That intensifies the feeling. Well, what if we watch Jaws on an Apple Watch, a 2-inch by 2-inch screen, and there was no sound, and it was just this little shark going? It changes the feeling, right? It changes the feeling. So we can do that in our mind. You can think about the things that scare you, make it small, push it down, fade it, turn it black and white, turn off the volume, hit mute, right? Or play some weird music in your mind when you're thinking about something that was scary. Dun, 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 right? And all of a sudden your brain's going, what, right? It's called a pattern interrupt. You make it small and tiny, push it far away, or that's something that used to happen. That's how I used to feel, okay? So, and then when you're thinking about what you want, make it big, bring it in. Instead of it being out of reach, put it right here. Say, you know what? I got this. I'm safe. I'm in charge. I can do what I can do right now. This is good. Right? I'm in control of what I can control. This is good. This is what I'm going to focus on today. And then use all the other things that we've been talking about. And that will also, when you use pleasure and pain, when you use pleasure and pain, when you use association and dissociation, and when you make things bigger and smaller using those submodalities, then it will increase your desire to move forward, and it will lower that worry that, was getting in the way. Okay? All right. Take a power breath in. One final section, okay? And then we'll be done. So the last part of this is seeking out opportunities. I really believe there's a silver lining in any situation. There's always some way to make things work to your advantage if that's what you believe, if that's what you're looking for. Whatever you look for long enough and hard enough, you're going to find. So make sure that whatever it is that you're looking for or whatever it is you're defending in your mind is something that you want. So there's 3 ways to seek out opportunities. The first one is to watch for the clues. right? Watch for the clues. Notice when you start talking about something, within a day or two, it'll start to show up. Have you ever thought about somebody and then like a day later, they call you up out of the blue or send you an email and you're like, oh my gosh, I was just thinking about you. Okay. It's because thoughts are energy. You put energy out into the energy field. It's all around us. And law of attraction says like attracts like. So when you put that energy out, it resonates with the energy of the other person, draws it back to you, right? They say you don't see the world as it is. You see the world as you are. And so without me going too ethereal on us, we just focus on whatever you're focusing on, you move towards, and your mind tries to help you bring that about. And so what we want to do is we want to watch for the clues. Like if I think about a movie, 2 days later, I swear it's going to show up on network TV somewhere, right? It happens all the time. I've been testing this for 20 some years and it works. It's amazing. And so we want to make sure that we're watching for the clues. If we reach out, we ask for something, and then we watch and wait for the clues to show up. Okay. When they show up, act on it. You have to take action. A friend of mine, Joe Vitale, says money loves speed, right? So does success. If you have an opportunity that shows up, act on it. Have you ever had the thought of this wonderful invention, is going to be really great for an infomercial, and then 6 months later, you see your invention on TV or something like, and you're like, they stole my idea. No, no, no. A bunch of people got the idea and they acted on it, right? They took action on it and now they're there. So we want to make sure that we're watching for the clues and then we're acting on those opportunities, because every step takes you to the next one. You can't open door number 2 until you go through door number 1. So you got to make sure that you're taking that first action, because it will unlock the second door. It might not be to the 5th door where your big breakthrough happens. So you got to keep going through those doors, even if it feels like it's not going to work out. It's a waste of time. It's not, even if you're having those worrisome fears, we all have that. We have to upgrade it. Yes, it is. It's going to be fine. What do I want? And then focus on that and then take that first step and keep moving. If you've ever been driving through fog and it's real foggy and you can only see 10 feet in front of you, well, if you drive that first 10 feet, the next 10 feet appear, right? And if you drive that 10 feet, the next 10 feet appear. Well, you've got to drive the first 10 feet to see the next 10 feet. And then the third part of this, it's square watermelons, right? So I might as well go to it. So there was a company that was trying to figure out how to create more space in their trucks to deliver these watermelons. And one of the employees said, why don't we make square watermelons? And everybody laughed at him and said, oh, you're crazy. There's no such thing as square watermelons. Well, he decided to take action on this opportunity that popped into mind. They built this box. They started growing watermelons, and lo and behold, it took the shape of the box, right? And so all of a sudden, they now developed a way to create square watermelons so they can now stack their product. That person had a creative idea that everybody thought that he was crazy. He took action, and boom, he created the result that he wanted. Okay, so the third part of seeking out opportunities is control what you can and let go of the rest. It's the serenity prayer. Okay, Lord, grant me the wisdom to control what I can control, to let go of the things that I can't control, and have the wisdom to know the difference between the two, right? So we want to make sure that we are recognizing there's some things we can't control, like the coronavirus, what's going to happen. We can't control that, right? But we can control how we show up while it's happening. We can control all the things that we've been talking about the last 50 minutes. We can control all of that. You have so much more power inside of you than you might realize. And that's really what this message has been all about for you. So the 3 steps to free yourself from fear and turn your goals into a reality. Step 1 is you want to start by accessing your relaxation response, by getting into more empowering emotions. You can do that with power breathing, looking up. You can think about, when was the last time I felt really confident? When was the last time I felt really relaxed? And when you think about a time like that, a vacation or a happy memory, then all of a sudden, when you think about that memory, you access those feelings. So that's another way to access that feeling of confidence or peace or any emotion that you want. Step 2, get clear on your desired outcomes. Okay, we want to be very clear on the outcome that you want, because your genie is going to help you move towards it, whatever it is. So pay attention to what you're thinking about, because what you think about comes about. And then step number 3 is follow through with your opportunities. They're always around. Use your imagination. Associate pleasure and pain in the right way. Associate yourself into success. Dissociate yourself from anything that isn't. right? And then make what you want close and big so that you're accessing those feelings right now. And then, and as you do that, just make any other worries smaller and tinier. Yes, they're valid. Yes, we may need to solve these problems for sure, right? So we can stay resourceful, but we want to make sure that we're always looking not at the problem, but how we're going to solve it, right? Or the solution that we're going to find. So I've got some resources for you. Okay. If you're interested in learning more about how to take charge, everybody, in my opinion, is a leader of yourself. If you have a lead teams or organizations, or you have a volunteer position, an MPI or a paid position, then that's awesome too. But everybody is a leader of themselves. And so if you want some free leadership training, go to mesmerizingleadership.com. I've got a bunch of free training videos for you. If you want some mindset training, go to www.survivingtothriving.me. Awesome program, change your life in a week kind of stuff. The Life Mastery podcast I have, it's called How to Be Mesmerizing. And I've interviewed Hall of Fame speakers and top performers in the world. And every day I'm sharing, or Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I'm sharing new tools and new resources so that you learn how to use the power of your mind to create your life by design, because truly you are amazing. And I want you to know it. And then if you want today's replay, it'll be up tomorrow. You just go to youtube.com/Shurr Success. Shurr like my last name, Success. Thanks so much, everybody. I appreciate you. And now if you have any questions, I love questions. So Julia, take it away.
All right. Thank you so much, Tim, for that great presentation. If anyone has questions, feel free to submit them to the Q&A. I want to start off with a question of my own. You spoke about the power of visualization and how powerful that can be for visualizing what you want to happen. How do you help people get started with visualization if they feel kind of silly sitting down to do that, if they feel silly about that idea getting started?
Sure. So if you feel silly, that's weird. And I'll tell you why. You use visualization all day long since you were born, right? Well, maybe since you were 3, okay, when we start developing those mental capacities. But when you are stressed, what are you doing in your mind? When you are feeling peaceful, what are you doing in your mind? When you're really productive, what are you doing in your mind? You're visualizing. You're talking to yourself. You're planning. You're creating. You're thinking about the outcomes that you want. You're doing all of this stuff already. What people aren't used to is pausing for a few minutes and then getting really clear on what they want. And that is the missing ingredient for most people. Too many times we feel like this is where we are and this is where we want to be, and there's this gap in the middle and we don't know how to close that gap. Well, the gap often is literally going through the resources and the steps that are in this presentation, right? You access that resource state first, and then you really start to get clarity on what you want. If I ask you, Julia, where's the milk in your fridge? Do you know where it is?
I do.
How do you know?
Because I visualized it in my mind.
Didn't you get a picture of your fridge? And you're like, oh, it's on the door. Oh, it's on the shelf. See, we're visualizing all the time. We just don't realize it. Okay. So I want you to say to yourself, if I'm feeling silly, that is silly. If I'm feeling silly, that is silly. Right. And then it's okay to be silly. It's okay to be silly. If it's not okay, then you're too worried about the judgment of others because you're judging you. Right? You don't try to get others to stop judging you. You stop judging you. Or you judge yourself in a loving way. Then you won't worry about how you are coming across, right? Because you'll know it doesn't matter how I come across. I'm loving myself, and I know that I'm, showing up and doing the best that I can. And when you're being loving and kind and compassionate to yourself in that way, then you start to feel more comfortable. Your comfort zone expands. You're able to take more risks because you know that you'll be okay, and you're comforting yourself. And that's when big breakthroughs happen. Your biggest breakthroughs happen when you intentionally go to the places you don't want to go, right? Your biggest breakthroughs are hidden in the places that you don't want to go. But when you intentionally go there, you realize, 1, it wasn't as bad as you thought. And 2, wow, all of a sudden I have this new insight, this new learning, this new realization. So you can use visualization or feelization, or you can just be mindful of what you're saying to yourself and upgrade it, or write down positive affirmations, which are more just loving, affirming affirmations, just sentences that start with I am, because they're present tense, saying, I am going to be okay. I am in control of what I can control. I'm smart. I'm resourceful. I will figure this out. I've done it before. I'll do it again. We're going to be okay. So you can visualize, or you can use feelization, or you can be supportive and kind with how you talk to yourself. It doesn't matter which one you do. What matters is that you do it.
Thank you, Tim. We've got one more question that's been submitted. How do you help pessimistic clients of yours?
So let's say that there's 4 types of attitudes that we have, right? Now there's basic temperaments. So we are born more of a problem solver or a solution finder, right? So that's our basic temperaments. More people are into the details and more people are into the bigger picture. Other people are into the bigger picture. Usually you're one and your spouse is the other, right? And we create that balance. And so what I've noticed is there's 4 supported attitudes within there. Okay, so we've got number 2 and number 3 are your optimist and your troubleshooter. So let's start with number 1. Number 1 is your dreamer. And the dreamer is someone who their heads are in the cloud, but their feet aren't on the ground. So I always have these great ideas, but they don't follow through on anything and they aren't being practical, right? And so, you know, if these 4 people were in a boat and the boat was sinking, the dreamer would be like, oh, we're going to swim with the dolphins. Okay. And so, but they're probably going to drown. All right. And so then you have the optimist. And the optimist is a solution finder. Okay, we're going to be safe. We're going to be okay. We're going to get through this. Let's patch the boat. Let's all put our chewing gum together and then patch this hole. Okay. The third one is the troubleshooter. Now, most people think that the pessimist is the troubleshooter, and it's not. The troubleshooter is someone who is a problem solver. So the problem solver will say that gum's not going to work. And if we don't do something quick, this boat's going to sink, right? So they're very good at finding problems, but they're also looking for the solutions to solve those problems. The pessimist is the one in the boat that isn't looking for solutions at all. All they're doing is looking for problems. We're all going to die. I shouldn't have come on this boat. I don't like any of you anyway. Okay. And so that when you're dealing with someone who is a pessimist or who is supporting that kind of attitude, because I've met people who were like that, who adjusted. Right? You're not a slave to it. They've learned to adjust and grow. And so what they're doing is they're coming from fear because they have a whole bunch of self-limiting beliefs that the world's not fair. They got dealt a wrong hand. Nobody cares about them. Nobody is going to even like them. And so they show up in a way that makes that seem like it's the case. They don't realize they're helping to cause it. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. They don't realize that how they're showing up is causing that kind of reaction. They're being the effect of their life instead of the cause. Right? And so if they're in that situation, what you do is you remind yourself that you can feel any way you want, regardless of what they're doing, regardless of what they're saying, of how they're showing up. Sometimes we think, oh, I'm around them all the time and now it's bringing me down. It doesn't have to be that way. That's just the story you're telling yourself, right? You can go through and be grateful. Here's that you're not like that, right? They're giving you an example of how not to be. But here's what you can do if you want to be the cause. A lot of times, if you're an optimist or a troubleshooter and you're around a pessimist, you're going to want to try to fix them. You're going to want to try to give them a better attitude, right? You're going to try to get them to think on the bright side, right? Instead of being so negative, especially if you're married to this person. So what you do is, what people typically do is they say, the pessimist will say, it's going to be another one of those days, right? We look at all this paperwork, you know, they don't care about us at all, right? And so what usually happens is somebody will say, well, come on, it's not that bad. You know, things will be okay. We'll work through this together. Come on, it'll be fun. And this person's like, and it just makes them worse, right? Just get away from me, okay? If you want to influence someone, you got to meet them where they're at and then take them where you want them to go. But most people aren't meeting them where they're at. They're just trying to get them to go. And that kind of leadership doesn't work. So what you would do is find a way to agree. Find a way to have common ground. Find a way to connect with where they're at. Validate them a little bit. These people never get validated. These people are never appreciated, right? And so I have an acronym, LOVE. Walk around loving people. LOVE stands for listen to, understand, and validate. Listen to, understand, validate, okay? So love on that person. So if they say, oh, it's going to be another one of those horrible days, you know, look, they don't care about us at all, then what you can do is listen and understand and validate them. You can say, yeah, it looks like it can definitely be one of those days, you know, and it can certainly feel like, you know, nobody cares. That's for sure. But you know what? We'll get through it together. We'll find a way. Okay. You met them where they're at and you take them where you want them to go. Now, at first they're going to be like, yeah, whatever. I doubt it, because they're not trusting that. They've said 1,000 times, 10,000 times how things never work out for them. So they're not going to trust when you show up with your good intentions. Okay. But if you kept validating them, if you kept appreciating them, if you kept complimenting them, and you're not trying to get anything back. You're not trying to get anything back from them. You're just putting in a deposit because it empowers you, right? So that's one way you can do it. Over time, those people will start to trust you. They won't like anybody else, but they'll start to watch your back. They'll start to take care of you. And that's one way of doing it. So that's a very powerful approach. The second way of doing it is using some of these strategies and some of the relaxation, and imagine yourself being around that person and they're throwing all that energy at you and you've got this beautiful force field of light and it's just going right past you, right? Because you're feeling peaceful and at ease. And then when you're with them, your mind will know how to respond because you've already imagined it. You've already told your genie, this is how I want to respond in this situation with that person. Make that happen. And then use your power breathing. And then all of a sudden you'll find yourself more at ease. That situation with that other person that you were actually making bigger and bigger now seems smaller and smaller. And all of a sudden it's okay.
Great. Thank you, Tim. Do we have any final questions? If you have got a question that you've been formulating, go ahead and submit that to the Q&A feature now or into the chat. And if we don't get any further questions, we'll go ahead and wrap up. All right. I think you've given us a lot to digest. I know I took a lot of great notes during that presentation. So thank you so much, Tim, and to everyone for attending. This will go ahead and conclude the webinar. So everyone have a great rest of your day.
Bye. Thanks, Julia.
Thank you, Tim.